good at changing those routine setting goals, so seeing the big picture, making long term goals, avoiding distractions, and making in checking plans. So, organizing the steps needed to accomplish a plan or a goal and a task and monitor that work. And so, they're kind of some primary teaching strategies that are used. So, memorizing and repeating, like me repeatedly using the same kind of keywords and scripts. Like I said, a backup plan, so using, a backup plan every time. So we are going to use a backup plan today. Teaching by doing so, you model and you coach new script and skills. And you show the child how they can be flexible in particular situations, making it fun. So rewarding the child, playing games with the child, and this program actually has games where you have to put your flexibility to work and providing visual supports and checklists, etc. Like we saw on. I mean, again, this can be and should be applied with at home and in school, and typically children have to have at least about a 7 or 8 year language level to be able to really kind of grasp onto some of these concepts. Another program is called SMART, but scattered, and this targets 11 key areas of executive functioning thought to be most related to school success, and we have talked about all of those 11 through this video. But the one they talked also about that we haven't specifically defined that I think is important to go over, and this point is something called metacognition. And this is also something that our children with autism and or ADHD have trouble with. That ability to take a step back and assesses a situation from multiple perspectives, that includes assessing yourself and kind of seeing your role in the situation. And this program rightfully takes the approach, this is a long term process. These skills need to be practiced, having short term goals to build upon, and to have ongoing practice and monitoring, and kind of accepting that this is going to be kind of a marathon and not a sprint, helps kind of everyone involved, and the adults, the teachers, the parents have a sense of patience and deliberateness and how they approach teaching. Executive functioning strategies and supports, and so teaching the skill, really relies upon scaffolding. And so what that means is that you are kind of piling on that support at first, and you're starting to kind of slowly pull back as you see the child is having success. So basically, you can set up a problem, identify the behavior you want to work on, set a goal related to it, establish the steps that you're going to reach that goal, make your list, and then get the child to start using that list and evaluate that process. How often the child is using a list, you have to always stop the child, use a list, or just the child start to use the list on their own, and again pulling back through that supervision, fading that supervision through that scaffolding piece. And there are other intervention strategies. So kind of classic behavior management strategy. So the ABCs of behavior management. So where the A is kind of that trigger, the B is that target behavior, and the C is the reinforcement. What is kind of keeping maintaining that behavior? And so identifying those ABCs and then looking at a way to break that cycle, that maintenance cycle that's maintaining that behavior, and that includes rewards and incentive systems that can also help with not just breaking that cycle, but can help with behavioral. And there are also cognitive behavioral approaches that can be helpful, and these involve recognizing and challenging unhelpful thoughts and replacing them with positive thinking and positive coping strategies. Medication can also be helpful and can help with the inattention, the hyperactivity, the impulsivity, behavioral initiation. And then there are some hybrid approaches. So the zones of regulation, and again, this is designed to foster that self regulation and emotional control. And it's based on systemizing theory, central coherence theory, cognitive behavioral strategies, as well as social thinking, visual supports, self management. So it takes in kind of a lot of these different theories and approaches that we have discussed, and then given that all we have talked about executive functioning, can imagine that socialization requires a lot of executive functioning skills. So you're managing multiple dynamics. You have to be flexible. You have to listen in to different people and different people's perspectives and integrate that kind of in the moment. You have to stop yourself from saying something that might be inappropriate or offensive. So a lot of tapping into executive functioning involved in socialization. And so naturally, a lot of our social skills programs also include executive functioning components, which in an added bonus because it gives you another settings again to work on that generalization piece that I stressed is so important. And so one example is the social thinking curriculum. They apply strategies and social settings, and it breaks down those complex concepts into doable parts. It can be again applying into this multiple setting. So I know executive functioning has a bullet on here, but really, all of these settings, self regulation, and social emotional learning, perspective taking, social problem solving, all of them involves executive functioning. So, what works best? So, evidence for these approaches is growing. However, it's challenging to evaluate behavioral approaches. Treatments studies often focus on treatments that are briefer duration, and as we always already said, that you know that we are not in a sprint here, but just by nature of doing a treatment study, that's often it, a logistical problem. Effective interventions also often involve multiple components, multiple child and family dynamics. And so even if not yet, if some of these programs aren't kind of fully evidence based practices, the approaches that all of the problems that I have presented here are based in practices that have evidence in their theory. And so, additionally, when we think of what's working best to the first published study of what the first multimodal treatment study of children with ADHD, not necessarily autism. So, I will throw that in there, found that a combination treatment, medication, a behavioral therapy was the most successful approach. And kind of the tenet behind that is that if you do or have all these interfering behaviors, you're impulsive, you're inattentive, etc.